Welcome to Consumer Matters. My name is Jim McKenna. Attorney General Janet T. Mills provides consumers and businesses with a dispute resolution service. It's called the Attorney General's Consumer Mediation Service. We use volunteer mediators to try and resolve disputes between consumers and businesses. We have about 30 volunteer mediators who take on approximately 1,500 disputes a year. Participation is voluntary. The business has to agree to mediate, and it's free. One of the ways we try to resolve these disputes is by educating both consumers and businesses about their rights and responsibilities. We thought this program could be a way to pass on some information about Maine's consumer protection laws. Today we are going to discuss elder law, including the importance of wills in a state. But first, let's begin with disability rights and consumers. Now, our two guests today are Kim Moody, who's the Executive Director of Disability Rights Center, and Denis Fitzgibbons, who's the Executive Director of Alpha One. The philosophy behind the interviews we do is that the more consumers know, the better able they are to navigate the marketplace. But if you're a consumer who has a disability, navigating the marketplace is not easy. So Kim, let's begin with Disability Rights Center. What kind of cases do you take on?
Well, we represent all people with disabilities, and our job is to enforce and protect their rights, people's rights. And so particularly with regard to consumer matters, as you know, Jim, I mean, anybody who has a mobility impairment, uses a wheelchair, or otherwise can't do stairs, has a very different access to goods and services from those of us who are mobile, who walk, who can do stairs. So the kinds of cases that we do are anything from inability to get into a dentist or a doctor's office, or a restaurant, or a hardware store, or a bank, inability to bring one's service animal into a place of public accommodation, all across the board, anything you can imagine.
Right. And Denis, tell us a little bit about Alpha One.
Well, Alpha One, like DRC, serves all people with disabilities throughout the state of Maine. And that can be a physical disability, a mental disability, cognitive disability, or sensory, which includes blind and deaf. And so it's that whole range and gamut of things that people experience with disability.
So it's not just not able to use your legs? Or
no,
something.
it's anything that falls within the general description of disability as defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act. And there are a lot of people with disabilities in Maine, probably over 200,000. It's a big number of our population that meet that definition.
That's an enormous number.
It's an enormous number. And while we serve an enormous amount of people for a small organization, which is about 6,000 a year at Alpha One, that barely touches the surface of what's there for people and what the needs may be. But while Kim's agency is focused on rights and helping people fight discrimination or enjoy their rights, we're focused on providing services that enable people to be independent. And I just want to share that when I got here today, when I got out of my car in the parking lot, the person in the next car hopped out and said, "Where did you buy those hand controls for your van?" And that's the kind of thing we do at Alpha One, is people look for information and we provide it. So I was able to give them a business card and say, call us at Alpha One. We have all kinds of resources. We can tell you where you can find these things. So,
you know, Jim, you pointed out just a minute ago that we're not talking just about mobility impairments, and I think that's a vitally important point here, that access to goods and services, to be able to buy like everybody else, is, I only talked about physical access too, but somebody who has a communication issue, for example, someone who's deaf and wants to go into a store and buy something, has a different time of it. I do not like to say that it's more difficult for people with disabilities, but we do face barriers that other people don't face. There's a big difference between putting a little ramp to a lip to allow somebody physical access to a store compared to changing an attitude. For example, an attitude that all people with cerebral palsy also have cognitive impairments, so you need to speak loudly to them when they come to your store. So we get all of that, and I think for good and bad, the advent of online buying, which has changed the world for all of us, has certainly made purchasing more accessible for people with disabilities. But the downside of that is it really isn't about inclusion. It's not walking into or rolling into a store.
It's not a social event.
Right. It's not about being able to do exactly the same things as everybody else is able to do.
And you'll get your identity stolen.
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, and that's a great point that Kim makes. And You know, we often talk about the barriers that people experience in the community of accessing goods and services, and there are a lot of them. You know, it's difficult to get transportation if you have a disability and don't drive. You can't get where you want to go. Public transportation is minimal in this state, in a big rural state. Housing is an issue, to find barrier-free housing. The list goes on, but I would go back to where Kim was. I think the biggest barrier we still face is that people with disabilities experience a life of low expectations, and it's two ways. One is that most people who are able-bodied don't expect anything of people with disabilities, and when we do something, I don't know how many times we're told, oh, you're an inspiration.
Good job. Yeah,
you know, you work?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
You drive?
Yeah, so I mean, the list goes on. But then we have also built systems that makes people with disabilities buy into that.
Dependent.
It's a dependent culture that's out there in the community that people think they need to be taken care of, or that they just can't do things. And our organizations are focused on helping people realize they can. And you know, one of our employees likes to say, you know, what we do at Alpha One is, goes that old adage, what is it? You can give a man a fish, it'll eat for a day, teach a man to fish, and it'll eat for a lifetime. And that's where we're focused in our organization.
Is it fair to say that, Kim, your organization employs lawyers, and Dennis, yours employs social workers?
Well,
go ahead.
Our organization employs lawyers and advocates. So,
right.
yeah, that's a good...
Yeah, well, and we actually have had very few social workers, but we have occupational therapists, we have rehab teachers, we have people with nursing backgrounds, we have people with disabilities who we have an architect on staff. We've got an incredibly diverse and strong group of individuals, many of whom have disabilities, by the way, and that's another way how we lead by example, but a variety of backgrounds.
Dennis, I take your point about that we have the wrong presumptions about people with disabilities. But I'm an example of somebody who, it's not necessarily presumption, it's somebody who's just not thoughtful enough. I mean, we arranged this interview, and I never thought about the fact that Dennis being in a wheelchair would cause problems. And if it hadn't been for,
a problem causer.
If it hadn't been for Maureen Blanchard, our producer, we wouldn't have thought about the need for a ramp here. Yeah. We didn't have a ramp.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great example.
Luckily, they were able to accommodate you. But you know, here I'm the person who should have thought of that. I didn't even.
Well, and you shouldn't beat yourself up over it. I mean, everyone has their own life. We're all focused on our own life and our own job, and so we don't expect that people are going to be focused on, well, what if someone with a disability comes? But our roles as organizations is to educate the general public about the things that people with disabilities need to be included in society. And it's a wide range of things, and it's not something that can be accomplished in our lifetime.
15, I mean,